Thanks for watching Numbskull News, and today we're going to get into some G5 talk. Now, a lot of people in the media have, talked about G5 schools and possibly coming to the Big 12 over the last several months. Like some of those Pac-12 media types, they talk about Fresno State and all that. I really think it's more of a rib than it is something serious, but Dennis Dodd has gone into talking about, UNLV and some other schools like that if they can't get anything out of the Pac-12. And I know in the comments section, a lot of you guys really love the thought of some of these G5 schools jumping into the Big 12. I don't mind the idea, although I think it's highly unlikely that we see any G5 come into the league for a long time. I think there's just a lot of things that your Mark wants to get done well before any G5. Because it gets bandied about so much in the comments, I thought, why not make a video? And I'm looking right at you, Charles M., son of a bitch. So, there's no better way to do this than a damn tier list. All right, so doing this tier list, we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at market. We're going to look at facilities, current success, past success. Basketball's got to be included. And we're not going to talk about any basketball-only colleges. These have to be football schools. So, let's get this shit started. And of course, we got to talk about San Diego State. They have everything. All right, they are P5 ready. They got the facilities, good football team, excellent basketball. They got it all. They got the market. They're in Southern California, San Diego. It's in the title, it's in the name. So they go into the S tier. For those who don't know, that's the superstar tier. It's the top level. Then, of course, A through F speaks for itself, and we should have people all around in all of that. Next up, let's talk about UConn. There's been a lot of talk about UConn. I am big on bringing in UConn basketball, but basketball only. The football sucks nuts. All right, geography, they're in a decent place. You would have a partner there for West Virginia. But man, that football offers you absolutely freaking nothing. Would it be worth bringing in the football just to get the basketball? I can't see that. This is why they got to go in the F tier. I don't want that football program in the Big 12. I just don't believe in it. I don't know if they'll ever be any good. They're elite in basketball. They're great in basketball. I think you can get them without having to screw with the football program. That's why I put them in. Next up, Memphis, and I've been advocating for Memphis forever. Keep in mind, I don't believe the Big 12 is going to be adding G5 schools anytime soon. But schools like San Diego State and Memphis may eventually find their way into the Big 12. All right, and Memphis is a growing market. I know there was somebody in the comments section that I just kind of rolled my eyes at. They said that Des Moines was the fastest growing market in the country. Well, if you look at different rates at different months, every month it's a new market that's the fastest growing in the U.S. So, with this exodus out of California and Illinois and New York and New Jersey, there's a lot of places at different times have different fluxes. Because I've heard the same thing about Austin and San Antonio and Dallas and Houston. Boise, I've heard that about Boise. I've heard it about Memphis. But Memphis keeps coming up. I mean, they are legit one of the fastest growing markets in the country. The entire state of Tennessee is. They've had a pretty respectable football team throughout most of their history. It's kind of an also-ran. Let's be honest. They're an AAC school. The basketball has been really good in the past. And, of course, we all know they got that great corporate backing from FedEx. And I don't know why Louisville doesn't have that from UPS. I work at UPS. And our big corporate entity, our center of our UPS universe is in Louisville. But they don't have the same connection that Memphis has with FedEx. And that's a great corporate backer. Even though you should never use them to ship with. You should use UPS. But Memphis belongs on the S tier, no doubt. And let's talk about those South Florida Bulls. All right, now, they've had some past success, not too much these days. The women's basketball is pretty damn good, pretty salty, but the men's basketball, the last time they made the tournament was in 2012. They got to the round of 32, but that's as good as it's gotten for them in basketball. So they don't offer a lot there right now. And of course, football right now, they're not a factor. The Tampa market is good. That's probably the best quality for USF is to have another team in Florida. That's a massive football state right there with California and Texas, and a great natural rival for UCF. And I am, even though I'm here in Fort Worth, I'm a TCU fan, but man, I'm excited to see what UCF does in the Big 12. I think they are destined for huge things. And I think South Florida, if they ever got into the Big 12, would be a great rival for them. I think that they would spark up and they could take off and have some success of their own more than they've ever seen before in their life. But having said all that, they are B tier, even though, I like them. I like the thought, but let's be honest. Football hadn't been great. The basketball, the men's side hadn't been great. The only thing they have going for them is the women's basketball. And of course, the market being in Florida, being in Tampa, that would be a quality add because of those things. Everything else would take time. So B level. Next up, Boise State. Now this used to be a really good football team. They would sneak up and get people in bowl games all the time. I believe they damn near got into the Big 12 before, and would have been worthy of it. I absolutely love that blue football field. It's awesome. And as I said before, Boise is one of the fastest growing markets in the country. But right now, that's about all they have going for them. And look, I just like the idea. I know they can compete. They have a history of competing in football. All right, basketball, there's really nothing to talk about with basketball. But football, they've been a bit of they were a BCS buster back in the day. They can get there again. Getting into a Power Five and the money and what that kind of infusion into the program, they'd be pretty damn good. Even though for not great reasons, I'm putting them in the A tier. I've always kind of been an advocate for Boise State. I just like them. All right, they are the definition of the little engine that could. Next up, SMU. Now, the good thing about them, it's Dallas. But you already have a DFW market team in TCU. So what is that really worth? Despite them being a small private school, they have big freaking donors that are not afraid to spend. So if they got into a Power 5, NIL is no problem for SMU. Of course, they had past success, so much past success that they got the death penalty over it. And it took them decades to get back to any kind of respectability. And they are back to respectability. That's a respectable football program at this point. Unfortunately, they weren't able to keep their coach, Sonny Dykes. TCU got him because it's the bigger conference with more opportunity. And I think Sonny Dykes took SMU about as far as he could being a G5. But being a Power 5, that's a great natural rivalry for TCU. And I know outside of this market, no one really knows about that rivalry, but it's a great crosstown rivalry. Dallas versus Fort Worth. And over time, that would start to mean more than even Texas and Oklahoma around here. Because now that Texas and Oklahoma are out of here, they're in the SEC. More shine would come to an SMU-TCU rivalry, especially if they're both in a G5 conference and playing for games that actually matter, that could have conference implications, if not playoff implications. So there are some good things in having SMU come into the Big 12. And I will admit it's a little bit of a bias of mine because SMU, I know SMU, I'm from the area. So I got them in the A tier. And I know it's starting to pack on a lot of Texas schools, but Texas is just a hell of a place. Next up is Tulane, not Texas. Now, New Orleans market, you get into Louisiana, a little bit into the SEC marketplace there. This is not a bad thing. They're a quality football program. Just won the AAC. Beat Kansas State. They beat our conference champ this year. There's not much to be written about as far as the basketball program. But as I said, New Orleans, it's in football terms, New Orleans, it's one of these weird markets, right? New Orleans is not a big market, but it's one of those nice feathers in the cap, because of the history of New Orleans, of what it is, the culture of the place. It's a tourist destination, so there's some prestige to being in New Orleans, for whatever that's worth. Because most of New Orleans, let's face it, is kind of a shithole. I used to live in Louisiana. New Orleans, outside of a few streets, there's not much to write home about as far as New Orleans. And also, you would improve the academics of the conference with Tulane being an AAU school. So overall, I think B level is the proper place for Tulane. I think that's enough respect for Tulane. And we got to get to the damn to the Mr. John Canzano special Fresno State, the infamous Fresno State that should go to the Big 12 according to Pac-12 media. This team is not ready for Power 5 under no circumstances. Now, good football program. I believe they just won the Mountain West. Not bad. Can't talk about any of the basketball. I don't know how good they are there. I didn't even bother looking it up. They have pretty poor facilities, though, and they're trying to put investment in. They want to put investment in there, which is, I believe, why they're running a lot of stories, trying to get certain bills passed and get the state of California to pay for their facilities or their upgrades to such. And when it all boils down to, their biggest reason for any ad of Fresno State would just to be in California. And yeah, the market itself, there's a lot of fans there. That's a lot of big population, but I mean, there's like zero brand value. I mean, Tulane barely has a brand value, but it is New Orleans. All these other schools do have, even UConn has some kind of brand value because of their basketball. Fresno really doesn't have that. When you think of Bulldogs, are you thinking Fresno? No, you're thinking Georgia. You're thinking Gonzaga. You're How many Bulldogs do we need? So look, they're not devoid of value or anything, but they are way down the list. D tier, and I think I'm being generous with D tier. I'm just putting them there because they are in California. They're in a nice market. And, their football team is not dog shit. It's just not. But you are like probably the least wanted Bulldog of all college sports in Fresno. So I have to put you on the D tier. And let's talk UNLV. This is a Dennis Dodd special. This is market and market alone. This is about being in Vegas. I can't think of a single other reason to have UNLV. Once upon a time, back in the day, they had a reasonable basketball program, actually a really good basketball program. They have nothing now. All they have is Vegas, and that's it. And I don't know if that's enough to even think about ever putting them into the Big 12. Could they, with entry into the Big 12, could they eventually be something? For right now, they would be a punching bag for the rest of the conference. Because, the TCUs and the Baylors and the UCFs, the BYUs, we would just stomp the holy shit out of them week after week after week for years until they got that thing turned around. It'd be embarrassing. Vegas, I'll use Vegas to keep them out of the F tier. And that I don't like to have a blank tier. So I'll put them there. But that's about the only place I could put them. And let's talk about Rice. I know what you're thinking. Why in the hell would you even include Rice in this list? Well, they've been in the media. People talked about them going to the Pac-12. Now, I'm not including all teams that have been talked about going to the Pac-12. I'm not going to talk about Colorado State. I'm not going to do any of that. But I am going to include Rice. Now, they've got one thing going for them, and that's academics. All right. You've heard of the Ivy League, right? Well, there's also an Ivy League Plus. Schools that are thought about being an Ivy League Plus is Stanford or Duke or Vanderbilt. Though, that quality. Rice is in that market. So if you want to talk about really lifting up the academic profile of the Big 12, if that means anything to you at all, Rice would be the perfect ad because they are right there. They are one of the absolute top few schools in this country, a tier one. And there's not many tier one academic schools in this country. Rice is one of them. But that's literally all they add. They're in Houston. They'd make a nice little rivalry with Houston. They've had a rivalry with Houston since the JFK days in the '60s, but they're not good. I mean, they made a bowl game with 5 wins just because there wasn't enough 6-win teams. So yeah, they got to a bowl game, but only because they couldn't find another 6-win team anywhere. I mean, that's kind of embarrassing. Um, could they be better in the Big 12? Could they, with resources, that the Big 12 offer? They just got into the AAC. So, I actually think Rice might actually be coming up in the world a little bit, and being in the AAC will help them. But as far as all of a sudden jumping to the Big 12, they used to be in the Southwest Conference back in the day with all these teams, but that's been a long time ago. But I'm going to shock you, and I'm going to put them above Fresno, above UNLV, and I'm going to put them above UConn football. Rice is that much of an academic brand that if you include them, that might help you later on down the road add teams that might, I don't know about coming into the Big 12. A team like Virginia that may not be able to get into the Big 10 or the SEC one day, they look at the Big 12 like, oh, fucking academic shit. Oh, wait a minute. They have Rice. They have Kansas. Texas Tech is R1, research facility. Okay, maybe this damn thing isn't so bad after all. And so the whole thumb in your nose in the air kind of thing may not be such an issue later on down the road. That would be the only reason to bring in Rice. So yeah, Rice is kind of crazy. But, realignment has a lot to do with rivalries as well. And, that would be another rivalry to have inside the Big 12. So you are growing and expanding your borders, but along the way, you still want to have good rivalries which make good ratings, and that's something that the TV networks are looking for. That would be another reason for South Florida to come in. That would be one of only 2 reasons for Rice, but it's such an academic powerhouse. I think it's worth thinking about, not anytime soon, but maybe down the road, 5 years or so, somewhere down the road. That's all I'm saying. So I'm trying to be nice and make a case and fill out my tier list. So there you go, man. What happened? Sea level? Yeah. That's all I wanted to check. Yeah, so sea level for the Rice Owls, man. And I did that just to make myself laugh. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.